While the Drag Gulk is the most famous Welsh dragon, it is not the only one. There's also the Gber. The Gber is a type of water dragon, one of which haunted a valley near the village of Penmachno in North Wales. It appeared as a gigantic and terrible winged serpent that spat poison and snatched up cattle and villagers alike, depending on mood and opportunity. Then it would slip into the river that flowed through the valley and disappear. Many brave heroes had attempted to kill the creature over the years, but all had failed. One day a young man named Owen ap Griffith came to the village and sought out a wise man named Rhys Thewen, who was believed able to predict a man's fate. Owen told the old man he had come to slay the Gber. "The Gber is too much for you. If you fight it, you will die," Rhys said. "Well, then how will I die?" "The creature will bite your neck and kill you," Rhys said. Owen was skeptical, so he decided to test the old man. He appeared the next day in disguise and asked Rhys again how he would die. "You will slip on a rock and break your neck," Rhys said. The next day, Owen disguised himself again, went to Rhys Thewen and asked the same question. This time the old man said, "You will drown." At this point, Owen threw off his disguise and confronted Rhys, saying, "You told me I'm going to die 3 different ways, and that is ridiculous. You don't know what you're talking about." The old man didn't even blink. "Nevertheless," Rhys said, "what I told you is true." Owen scoffed, donned his armor, and took up his weapons and went down to the river to find the Gber. It didn't take long. The problem was the Gber found Owen first. It swooped down on him from above and bit him in the neck. The force of the blow made Owen slip on the rocks at the river's edge, and as he fell, his head hit a boulder there, snapping his neck. Then he slid into the river, and his last breath was all water, and so he drowned. Rhys Thewen's predictions had all come true. There are different accounts of what happened next. In one version, Owen's friends and relatives, when they heard what happened to him, came armed and armored to take their revenge on the Gber for Owen's sake. In another account, it was the men of Penmachno themselves who finally decided something had to be done. So, either it was Owen's friends or the villagers who formed the group, armed themselves, and found the Gber soon after sleeping beside the river. They attacked with spears and arrows from a distance, dealing the creature several wounds. It tried to fly, but its wings were badly damaged in the assault. It moved as if to charge its attackers, then it screamed and dove into the river. Some say it died of its wounds. Others think it merely decided that being on land was too dangerous, and now lives on fish and keeps itself hidden in the water. Regardless, it never bothered the village of Penmachno again. Often translated as Palig's cat, after the sons of Palig who raised it, the name also translates as scratching cat. Whatever the true meaning of its name, the Cathpague was a fierce and dangerous beast. Oddly enough, this story doesn't begin with a mother cat, but with a magical sow named Henwen. A prophecy stated that Henwen would bear offspring that would be disastrous for Britain. So, rather than letting her have her litter in peace, Henwen was chased all across Wales in an attempt to prevent the births. In some versions of the legend, she was pursued by King Arthur himself. In others, it was a swineherd named Coll who had raised her. Swineherds often turned out to be wise men or even wizards in Welsh folklore. This plan did not work. Henwen had her strange offspring in various places across Wales as she ran. One of those places was called Black Rock, where of course a black kitten was born. Coll then threw the kitten into the Benai Strait to get rid of it, but it was caught in a net by fishermen and rescued. It was then raised from kittenhood on the island of Anglesey by folk who had no idea what it really was. It grew into such a fierce monster that it certainly justified the prophecy. As one version of the story goes, eventually the Cathpague became such a nuisance that Sir Kay and his men-at-arms came to deal with it. This is recounted in a poem called What Man is the Gatekeeper, from the Black Book of Carmarthen, in which only a fragment of the poem survives. If the name Sir Kay only summons memories of the Disney cartoon, take a moment and breathe. Clear your mind. In the old stories, Kay was a mighty hero in his own right and a formidable knight in King Arthur's service. In the resulting battle, 180 men fell before the monster, yet it was Kay's shield that stood proof against the Cathpague. While the actual outcome has been lost, we know from tradition that Sir Kay did not lose his life there, and the implication is he was the victor. Lady Wyn translates as the White Lady, a ghostly apparition who appears dressed in white. In other Western cultures, white ladies usually appear as terrifying and deadly apparitions, but Lady Wyn in Wales is of a different nature. She sometimes appears to warn children against bad behavior, and in that aspect can be classed among the nursery bogies. She is often known to appear at Hollantide, the Welsh equivalent of the Irish Samhain, and at Calan Gael, when the first day of winter is celebrated. She can and often does appear terrifying. However, if someone is brave enough to speak to her then, she is reputed to ask for help. What sort of help? Well, since apparently very few have had the nerve to ask, that's not clear. What is clear is that, though she sometimes might seek help, she will also willingly lead the person to treasure. There's a story that a terrifying apparition of a woman in white roamed the countryside near Bridgend in Glamorgan. Finally, a young man plucked up the courage to speak to her. When he did, the coast led him to a treasure hidden in Ogmore Castle nearby. However, her one condition was that the young man take only half of what he found there. He did so. Later, however, he just couldn't take his mind off all that gold and came back for the rest of it. The story then goes that the apparition's delicate hands turned into claws and she attacked him as he left. He became gravely ill soon after, but did not die until he confessed to taking the rest of the gold, and so he was punished for his greed. From then on, a melody called The White Lady's Revenge was believed to afflict anyone who died without revealing the location of hidden treasure. A Morrigan is a beautiful water nymph who can appear in either fresh or salt water. Sometimes they are portrayed as having tails, but sometimes not. Eternally young and immortal, they are believed to be the progenitors of the mermaid. They are usually seen combing out their long hair and singing to entice mortal men. If they succeed in the enticement, what happens next rather depends on the story. In some versions, the men are simply drowned. In others, they are taken to the Morrigan's home beneath the waves alive and sometimes even marry their hostess. It's all a guess anyway, since in neither case do the men ever return to tell what really happened. A variation of the Morrigan is the Marie Morgan, usually associated with continental Brittany. Unlike the Welsh Morgan, they are seldom depicted with tails. They are known to haunt coastal areas, the entrances to sea caves, and river mouths. They are often credited with creating floods. In one legend, Princess Dahit of the city of Yis carelessly opened the gates, keeping the ocean at bay during a romp with her lover, and submerged the city under the ocean for all time. For this crime, she was punished by being transformed into a Marie Morgan. The name means wine dust bird in English, which is a mystery all by itself. They are sometimes portrayed as similar to griffins, but as often as not as simply giant birds. Regardless, the Adar Gwyn may have been monstrous, but they were also intelligent and could speak and understand human languages. Not only that, but if a human happened to be in a position to be recognized as their master, they would obey any commands given loyally and to the letter. One example of their obedience and loyalty is given in a story from King Arthur's court. Pre-Guinevere, or perhaps during, Arthur had a mistress, the sister of one of his knights. Her brother Dredwas apparently considered the situation a stain on his honor and challenged his own king to a duel, and Arthur agreed. Now Dredwas knew that Arthur would never be late for a duel. Dredwas also had been gifted 3 Adar Gwyn by his fairy wife. Those birds were bound by his commands. Perhaps knowing all too well that Arthur was very likely to win their duel, he ordered the birds to attack and kill the first man who appeared at the lists, knowing it wouldn't be himself. Unfortunately for Dreidwas, his sister had somehow gotten wind of her brother's plans and managed to delay Arthur by means not stated but easily imagined. After allowing what he thought was enough time, Dreidwas appeared at the list as arranged. He was the first man there, and the birds dutifully tore him apart.